Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, Strike Bows. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to another episode of Unpopular Methods. In today's episode, we're looking at something a little bit different, as I won't lie, about half of the combinations I have on this list involve using melee, but I feel like melee has been harped on enough. So today we're going to be taking a look at range ED3. Now there was a point in time where people were using range at ED3, and as I've been told, it is a rather popular method for a budget preset using Bic arrows, but as far as best assault range is concerned, the only time it really got used at ED3 was when Gricko was released and kind of range went rampant all over every single boss in game, and it was used in some world record runs. For full dungeon runs, I don't believe it's held a solo record. It might have at Ambassador before the race for the first sub 3 happened, but I digress. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Now, as far as my preset is concerned, there's nothing really fancy here. It's just kind of a basic elite dungeon preset. I have some lucky charms, vuln bombs, standard range EOFs. This one's an SGB, this one is dark bow, this one is a ECB. I have my Bow of the Last Guardian. I do have the dual wields and a Karoming swap. I don't really use them too often. However, when I'm using chins, I do like to have the offhand, and sometimes I will use a Karoming swap if I'm Grickoing with chins on, even though, you know, chins are not going to buff Gricko. Gricko's still a decent ability for AoE damage, so it's nice to use there. And other than that, I'm just using Full Arrow and Death Spore. Now, for Crassian specifically, which is the first boss, Full Arrows will have an accuracy problem if you're not on Reckless. However, since we're going to be running Reckless, that won't be too much of an issue. And as far as other supporting gear, we'll just go ahead and hop over to Lunars. As far as relics are concerned, let's see what we're running with. I have Zerk Fury, CoE. Let's go ahead and, you know, I'm sure people don't like it when I do this, but I always run Luck of the Dwarves with Elite Dungeon specifically because I know the chance of me getting this is never going to happen, but if I ever saw a cheese and tomato bata in my Elite Dungeon chest, I would honestly consider quitting the game, especially if it was a doubled one. Though that doesn't happen, I just go ahead and run Luck of the Dwarves, and we could probably run Blessing of Het just for some extra eating ability. This seems like a decent setup. I believe this is something similar I used in my ED1 setup, and for those who are curious, I did stream a 12-hour challenge at ED1, just seeing how much I could make. I'm actually saving those clips for something a little bit bigger, rather than just releasing a 12-hour challenge series, but we need to wait for a couple updates to come out in the near future game-wise, and I'll do a video explaining all that in the future. But without me rambling on for another 20 minutes, let's just go ahead and get into this. Alright, so we'll just stick up per usual, and I always like to use Fortitude when I bonfire, just for that little bit of extra HP. Ogre Thermal Flask. I'm just going to set up for a half hour since I'm only doing one run. So that way I can use my Viswax for other things. Let's see, everything's good there. Reckless Aura, we'll just go ahead and pop it. Load the preset, and let's see how this goes. So as far as range at ED3 is concerned, yes, it was used for some record hunting. As far as dungeon runs are concerned, and I believe the record got to around the 12-minute mark. I seem to have forgot to use my potions, so we'll go ahead and overload. Summoning Renewal, Weapon Poison, and we'll just see how this goes. I have done about an hour of runs already, just to, you know, make sure I could do it. Let's just run through. Chins always are very nice for trash mob clearing, although in this dungeon, they're fine. Getting some lure, I would say it's a lot easier to get lures here than it is in like ED2. I swear ED2 is the most obnoxious. Target cycle not wanting to cooperate. Here what I like to do is anticipate before I bladed dive surge, and that's so I can get the this guy stuck right here in the middle, and then you can just chin everything and you're off to the races. It's the second tick of them targeting you. That is when he will be in the middle spot, and then you can just chin him down. Here, I just like to use rapid fire. Now, a fun little trick for here, if you want to know how people do the surge bladed dive here, if you look on this part of the wall and you just click it, then you hit surge bladed dive, you'll just go right over to this tile here, and then you can just start chinning things per usual. And then for these, I'll just use some single target stuff. Can't even see the... There's a scout. A little bow spec. Surge bladed dive. For these zombies, I like to go in this corner here. I'll just hit Debo because I can. Yep, that hit all of them. Sometimes I will switch to the Salve Amulet, and yes, Salve Amulet does work on all of the undead creatures in here, like the zombies, and it does work on the second boss, but it doesn't really work on anything else. So some people, if they are a bit lazy, will just run it. It's honestly fine, but I really only use this for the second boss, and with the amount of EOF switching I do, it's only really for phase 1 that I use it. Surge across. And so far, this feels fine. There's no real difference here. It just feels kind of like a standard ED1 run from a couple of years ago, honestly. Now, the things where the run kind of comes alive a bit now is how fast you can go with Bow of the Last Guardian. Now, I am no expert with this bow. I am not the fastest user with it, but you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. So what I like to do here is just get a couple bleeds off. Make sure my Death Spore is equipped. Make sure everything's on and ready to go. And then here I'll just hit Gricko. Got 2 snacks there, see if we can get a couple more. And then what I'll do is try and get a Gricko again so I can Incendiary, place my DS, and we're off to the races. ECB spec now. SGB spec doesn't work on Crassian, so you can kind of just avoid it. Use bow spec in its place. Off another Debo. Maybe hit attendees. Couple bleeds. Maybe another Gricko. Into a snap Debo. I got a bit more HP to do, just 10k. And I have seen some kills that are in the 30 seconds. I think the first run I did through here on stream, it was like a 35-second kill. Now this is the first part where I like to use my acceleration potion and just kind of search through this area. But on Crassian, you can get some ridiculous numbers with Bow of the Last Guardian. It's way up from before. It's definitely noticeable as far as damage output is concerned, at least on a crit build. I'm just using a crit build. I don't use poison here. I don't think poison would be optimal for a best in slot setup. Budget gear definitely could be very much usable. I could see it working rather well. I have less than 5 minutes in my charge pack. That's unfortunate. These guys down. Jump down. But yeah, so far it's not too bad. I like range here. I know it's not the most popular. Definitely a lot of people use melee here. Like, this is the classic melee camp safe haven. This dungeon specifically. This is where a lot of that... I make a joke about it, but it's like, you know, the whole, like, cult-like nature of melee camp. It seems to have originated, honestly, when this dungeon released. That's maybe not so much when it originated, but when it really started to become popular, was just running through this dungeon with melee. And for good reason. Back during that time period, it was extremely strong with the ED2 codexes. That's what made it really, really strong here. And so melee was just dominating the record sheet with its burst damage, and it was just dominating everywhere else. So, less than 1 charge. Jeez, nice. I think it's because of all the hits that I've taken, that's why. Can I get up here? A little bit of a detour because I forgot to fill my charge pack. We'll just go to the entrance. I should have divine charges in the bank. Hopefully I do. I do. Alright. So, as you can see, I am not perfect. No one is, honestly, but no one's perfect. And we'll just run on through. Here I like to have devotion and then get some type of bind ready and then hit dead shot, maybe another bleed into a snapshot. Eat a little bit of food. This is honestly one of the more painful spots in the run. Just that bridge of death right there. At least that's that's what I like to call it, kind of the bridge of death, but... Oh, they died before I got the snipe off. Now here I like to click this wall and then just surge bladed dive, and then you avoid the 4 mages right there. Now, I'm sure there's a setup here I could use with like what are they, the scare tactics abilities? I think that's what they're called. I'm sure someone will remind me. I forget, it's like route and something else. Now here there's still a couple mobs, so I can just build up death spore stacks. We'll just plant DS and go from there. Maybe hit with a snap into a Debo. We'll listen to a rapid. Probably gonna spawn the portal. Oh, he didn't. Got past it. Good. Sometimes he spawns it on me, sometimes he doesn't. Just kind of depends on what I'm doing. I haven't figured out any super ideal rotations. This is just sort of like an improv, honestly. But so far, it doesn't feel bad. That damage felt really nice there. I'm gonna go over here and work on this rift a bit. I can click it. There we go. And we were able to build up Death Spore again. Hit it with the Incendiary, the DS. And we're just going to chin here to get rid of the bloats. Go ahead and hit our Sigil. Now here you can actually go for a chin SGB, and it's actually not too bad to go for. Just run over to avoid this. It's not too bad of a kill, honestly. Kind of surprised at the speed. Just hit another bow spec here. Does that kill him? It does. 140, that's not bad. Now, to be fair, I have to be fair, like 140 is not bad for me. However, I'm pretty sure in like the old Blight Camp records, people were getting like mid 130s. So I'm not exactly sure, honestly, how to really incorporate bow there on phase 3. I mean, it's going to be phase 2. Phase 1 and 2 is where the speed's going to be built up for that boss mostly, but phase 3 I don't really see a method other than just trying to YOLO it with avoiding those bloats. Here's the second spot, by the way, where I like to use Power Burst of Acceleration, just kind of bladed dive surge through. And I don't see where a potential speed up is going to be other than just the first 2 phases and making sure, you know, trying to maybe get like a really good pre-phase on the first one with some type of setup leading with like a dark bow. I'm sure someone who really enjoys writing rotations could come up with something to where you have a good phase there time-wise, but also have it stacked up with like a Debo, like a triple Debo into something else to get a really good pre-phase, so that way phase 2 is rather quick. We have aggroed the mini-boss here. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. We can just sort of avoid it. Kind of the annoying part about this dungeon in general is just dealing with the aggro of mini-bosses that you don't actually mean to aggro. Like this one will get aggroed because of the 2 Crassian warriors around him. If the skeletons are in the wrong spot, any of the mini-bosses down here can get aggroed. There's kind of like some strict lines that the skeletons have to fall into so they don't aggro. And if they do aggro the mini-boss, it's just kind of annoying because these ones can stun you and slow you down. But other than that, range feels fine. Like, for the first two bosses, it's been fun here so far. And then we'll see how it goes in Ambassador, which I'm assuming will be pretty good. And then on these guys, nothing to it. It'd be funny if they released an undead version of the Jazz arrows. That'd be really... Because they did Dragon Bane and Demon Bane. I mean, Undead Bane's kind of a really awkward word, to be honest, but... 30% arrow damage against undead targets, that could be quite entertaining. Now, if you wanted to be really fancy, you could load a second preset at this bank and make one. I'm pretty lazy. Now, we didn't get any mini-bosses here, which is nice. Sometimes I will look to see if it's on Spotlight, quote-unquote. Elite Dungeons have a Spotlight each day, and it rotates between the three, where... you get more chance for, like, mini-bosses spawning and whatnot. And ED3 I typically will avoid if it's on the Spotlight, just because getting these mini-bosses, there's 3 that can potentially spawn there, and all of them I find rather obnoxious. We're just gonna run in. I don't really think I'll need food here. And we'll just send it. Now, Ambassador, even though he looks skinny, his hitbox actually is a 3x3, so we can take advantage of SGB. So far, damage feels decent. The bleed there to stay on 3, so I can go into a Bendy, Snap, and a Debo. I'll just stun this. Oh, I thought I wasn't gonna phase him there. 40 seconds though for a phase, that's not too bad. I mean, I haven't done this dungeon in forever, so I don't really know what good time marks anymore. If it's subs 3, it's fine with me, so that's all I really care about. In testing, the hour I did here before I went on like a hour-long discussion on stream about the FSOA changes, which I probably will address in another video. If that's something you want to see, leave it in the comments below. But I was seeing around 3 minutes flat here, and what I was trying to do was to get Incendiary Shot and DS built as fast as possible here. So I can have it for the 3rd phase or 4th phase. I forget the numbers here. You know, if one goes in, it's not the end of the world. I can just disrupt shield it. There we go. That's all you need to do. If you guys have one of those spinners go in, or Roombas, whatever you want to call them, you can just disrupt it. It is like a tick thing, depending on how far you are from him, but it's not too terrible. Not getting too lucky on crits here. I also forgot to Vuln. That is classic car guy right there. Absolutely forgetting to Vuln. But we didn't get the second little ZGS. I forget what it's called. The ZGS spec looking thing. I'll remember it eventually. But didn't get that one. So that's usually a decent indicator of damage and pace. We can go ahead and get our Death Spore stacks. We're at 3. Got our stacks. Then DS in the center. Hit the Incendiary. Hit a Gricko into a Debo. Maybe a Rapid Fire to get some crits. Run built up. And phase it. 310, that felt a little slow, but I've been seeing around the 3 minutes. I'm sure with some better rotation work and getting the stacks built up. Oh no, mini boss. Run away! I'm sure that with a bit of work, that a competent ranger who is comfortable in the dungeon and has been doing it for a bit and figuring out actual rotations, I'm sure they could get into the 250s, maybe even the 240s, probably even faster, honestly. I could see a mid-2 being pretty possible under a like normal farming circumstance, not going for anything crazy like Roomba skip or something like that. Alrighty, that is a run at ED3. Let's go ahead and get into some final thoughts on this. Obviously, everyone pretty much runs melee here or magic. Magic more so with FSOA release. There were some 4-ticking magicers way back in the day that would run this dungeon, myself included, and I enjoyed it a lot. However, most people just ran melee in either a duo or trio, or even just soloing and letting Vamp Scrim just do the work. It was a very popular method. It still is a popular method to use melee just because of how prominent it is with this dungeon, and magic ever since FSOA release has been used everywhere, but obviously the revival of magic, so to speak, here definitely played a role. And range has always been on the back burner other than some record runs in, I want to say it's the late 2020 time frame, maybe early 2021, somewhere around there. I mean, obviously it's in that time frame. That's post Gricko release and pre-FSOA release, so that's kind of the time frame where range was used here in some capacity to kind of set full dungeon run times, just due to the fact of how powerful chins were, and Hydric's bolt method was no joke with Gricko. It brought range right back into the spotlight as far as DPM is concerned. Melee had the burst damage still, but a lot of places were getting records run by range for that little window in time. So with all of that history nonsense and everything out of the way, what do I actually think about range here? If you have best in slot range and you have to go through the elite dungeon log, by all means, definitely send it. Nothing will stop you here from getting 4.5, 5 runs an hour. I think that run, yeah, it was definitely slow because I had to get divine charges, and I've been trying to get like a coherent cut here for the past like 5 minutes, so it felt like a decent run. I'm sure someone who was running a lot faster, I could see, you know, getting consistent 12 minutes or even sub 12-minute runs to try and chase that 5 runs an hour. I could see that being doable here, no problem. So, I mean, I already have the log here, so I don't really do the dungeon anymore. The GP per hour is rather lackluster. I mean, if you're running 5.5 runs an hour, which is absolutely no joke, 5.5 an hour is like, I think it's still theoretical max runs per hour at this dungeon. I think you're only making 46 to 50 mil an hour. So if you're capable of doing 5.5 runs an hour here, definitely just be doing that for the log, and I would suggest going to other dungeons otherwise for the profit, or just go to other bosses that make you a lot more if you're looking for GP. But if you need to complete the log and you want to run range, there is no problems here. You can run all 3 combat styles if you have the gear for it on separate auras, just to save on refreshes. If you happen to be a little bit low, feel free to throw range in there. It definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Anyways though, before I keep rambling on about random RuneScape history and other stuff of the sort, let's go ahead and roll that outro. Ladies, gentlemen, I did not forget about you, strike bows. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next video. Peace.